Okay, maybe we can get started. So welcome again to another FoundHer event. Today we are going to showcase two successful corporate startup partnerships with Sweeten and Ecomedes. And I'm going to start giving a little bit of an overview about Plug and Play. And I promise to keep it short for those who already know us. So just give me 1 second to share my screen here. Okay. So our agenda for today, the quick opening remarks about Plug and Play and about FoundHer, and then I hand it over to Robin. Big shout out to her. She has helped us to organize this event today. And then we will dive in right away into the panel discussion together with Saint-Gobain and the two startups. And in the end, you will have the opportunity to ask all the questions that might come up in your minds. So yeah, have fun. About us, so originally we had a building on University Avenue in Palo Alto, and our CEO was running a rug store there. And in the 1990s, startups became increasingly a topic. And of course, when you sell rugs, you get into the conversation with VCs. And some of the VCs asked our CEO, hey, why don't you rent out some of the real estate that you have and rent it out to the startups? And he decided, well, yeah, why not? And one of the first companies he rented the space out to was the early Google team. And of course, Google grew and grew, and at some point they had to move out of the building. And that was the very first success story of Plug and Play. And after that, other startups came in and they had exits. And one of the second most remarkable stories was the one of PayPal. They ran out of money during the process of running the startup, and Said offered them free rent in exchange for a little bit of equity. And with that investment, he actually bought our Plug and Play building in Sunnyvale as we know it today. From that, only venture capital focused company where we invested in more than 100 startups, at some point we moved to the open innovation platform. And this also happened with other stories. So Said knew a lot of startups, but at the same time, he got into the conversation with some of the corporates who were really interested in those technologies. And he made introductions. So for example, he actually introduced the Android developer to the Google team because of course he had a very good connection to the Google team. And he thought, okay, this is a fantastic value creating activity to introduce startups to corporates. And he developed the industry specific programs that we have at our company today that kind of brings together and builds the bridge between startups and corporates. From there, we now have 18 different industry programs. From there, we have built a global presence all over the world, replicating this model with 30 offices worldwide right now. So this is what we do in a very short slide. We run over 60 of those acceleration programs around the world, and we work together with more than 400 corporations. Of course, we haven't stopped investing ourselves, and we actually observe the startups in our program ourselves. And we invest in approximately 220 companies every year, often in a co-investment together with other venture capital firms. So overall, we really have this ecosystem of change makers where we bring everyone together for innovation, corporations and startups, but we also work with government organizations. Then we have the VCs coming in, mentors who give guidance for startups throughout their journey, universities that send us startups and do pitch events together for us. So this really creates this vibrant ecosystem where everyone is there to make a change. Here's our global reach with the different offices, and this is probably always outdated because there are new offices coming almost every second month. I think we've just launched Chicago as well. So here are some of our portfolio startups, and PayPal, as you see, is one of them. But you may recognize the one or the other name, like N26 or Dropbox. And some of our 400 corporates, also some names that may be recognizable. Of course, this changes over time as well. And these are our 18 different industries that we currently support. we also adapt a little bit. As you could see, we had a COVID-19 accelerator this year, which helped everyone to get through the pandemic a little bit better. And here is how we select startups. So for every program, we source approximately 800 to 1,000 startups. And from that, we create a list of the top 100 startups. That list is given to the corporates in the program. So for example, the real estate corporates, and they select around 40 startups that are invited to a selection day. From that selection day, we invite 20, so 2%, to participate in the program. And in the end, we invest in around 5 of those startups. With that, we ensure a high quality startup selection process for us to invest, but also for our corporate partners, of course, to work together with the best startups around the world. Okay, and now my personal mission, the FoundHer initiative at Plug and Play, which is there to support female founders around the world. And we do that by creating that network of investors, mentors, and entrepreneurs. Of course, we use the existing Plug and Play resources as well. And our goal is to increase opportunities for women in the startup world, and also to inspire some more girls, women, to create their own startups, because we want to see more, more women creating a company. In short, our mission is to inspire, to educate, and to connect women. So you are part of one of our many events today, and we often do networking events as part of that. We also focus on mentorship and education. You may have seen the FoundHer Fridays with the workshops that we offer. And in addition to that, of course, we also have to educate ourselves. So we do quite some research, read a lot of articles, and so on, and also publish it on social media, so creating a social media presence. And if you are not part of our LinkedIn channel yet, please join us there. We are quite active online. Okay, this is us. So Dominique is usually handling the marketing and events. Rachel manages the research and the global expansion. And myself, I'm mostly doing the workshops and the mentorship. So our kind of FoundHer network includes these kind of elements, and I'm the one point that I didn't mention before was the diversified partnerships. So today, for example, we're partnering with Saint-Gobain to show you 2 successful partnerships, but we also partner with various nonprofit organizations around the world, like Women in Tech, like other female entrepreneurship organizations that really help us to leverage the impact. And as I said, after a lot of workshops, we thought it's so important to talk about women's success stories. So that's why we are here today. And I wish you a lot of fun, and I'm handing it over to Robin here. So thank you again, Robin.
Great. Thank you, Leila. So my name is Robin Milstein. I'm one of the external venture managers for Saint-Gobain's Nova Group, which is the corporate venture capital arm of Saint-Gobain. Really happy to meet Leila through the FoundHer network, for which I'm a volunteer mentor. And I'm also going to be moderating the panel discussion today. And when we talk about the topic of successful partnerships between corporates and startups, I always think it's easier to relate to and more tangible if we focus on a specific industry. So that's what we've done today. We're focusing on the construction industry. Saint-Gobain is a world leader in building materials, and we've brought here 2 startups that we've invested in that are developing new digital platforms that are really innovating in this space. But we do believe that the best practices and success stories that we're sharing should be easily translatable to all the areas that the founders in this audience are working on. So we hope that you enjoy it. So I'd like to start by introducing the rest of the panel. So starting with Maud today. Maud is joining us from Paris. She's the VP of Strategy for the group within Saint-Gobain. We have Mina Sapelian joining us from outside of Philadelphia. He's the VP of Internal and External Venturing at Saint-Gobain. And then we have, as I mentioned, the CEOs and founders of 2 of our portfolio companies. So we have Jean Brownhill from Sweeten, who's joining us from New York City, and Kathleen Egan, a co-founder and CEO of Ecomedes, joining us from San Francisco. And so I'm also based in San Francisco. And so I'd like to start by sharing a bit of information about Saint-Gobain, who we are, what we do, and what our venture team does. So I'll first invite Maud to give a brief overview of the group, and followed by Minas to talk about our venture team.
Thank you so much, Robin. Hello, everyone. Very glad to be with you. So Saint-Gobain, I'll pronounce it the French way, Saint-Gobain, is a worldwide leader in, as you said, construction. We are delivering sustainable construction to our customers, focusing on a value proposition around sustainability and performance. We are really developing solutions that enable our customers to build sustainable and performant buildings. We are a 42 billion euro sales company present all over the world with about 69 countries. We just welcomed last year Kazakhstan as our 69th country. And we are a company which is very focused on innovation. We have been for the past 10 years part of the top 100 innovator. And there are only a dozen companies worldwide which are part of this ranking for 10 years in a row. So that's for us a huge pride, but also a very big recognition of all the innovation capabilities that we have developed internally. And Minas will come back to that, but Nova is a key part of this innovation culture in Saint-Gobain. Another key aspect for Saint-Gobain is also the values that we are carrying. Our purpose is making the world a better home. And I think it tells a lot about our company and what we are doing. We have been also for several years in a row a top employer, global top employer, which is also a great recognition of all the work we are doing with local communities, with our employees and with all our stakeholders. So we are a quite engaged company, and I'll hand over to Minas to introduce a bit more about our corporate venture activities.
Thank you very much, Maud, and it's a pleasure to be with you all here today. So as Robin mentioned earlier, I lead the internal and external venturing activity across Saint-Gobain globally. And as Maud mentioned, innovation is really core to our values and our long-term growth strategy across the group. And we recognize that while we have great technical and R&D capabilities globally across the company, that we have to also look outside to bring innovation into the company that is happening in the outside world, universities, and especially startups. So our Nova Venturing team has the primary mission of engaging startups around the world to bring new concepts and new disruptive ideas into the group. And we try to support the startups and the entrepreneurs through access to our capabilities, partnership with our businesses, and investment to help them to meet their strategic growth goals. We work as a strategic investor. So, while we certainly, want to, invest wisely, we're primarily trying to drive learning across the organization, and we're trying to bring value to our startup partners. We feel that for Saint-Gobain to be a good partner for a startup, we need to bring more than just investment. We need to bring access to capabilities, to customers, to markets, to insights that can really help our startup companies accelerate their development, help them to prove out their business models and help them to advance. And I would say, lastly, that we carry a very long-term view. Our purpose being make the world a better home. It really provides a roadmap and a beacon to all of our businesses, whether they're in construction or in high-performance materials or in facing the mobility markets or life sciences, to bring those new technologies that can help challenge the way we do business today and open up opportunities for things we can do in the future. So really excited to be here with Jean and Kathleen to talk a bit about how we do that and how we help them to do what they need to do.
Great. Thank you, Minas. And thank you, Maud. So next I'd like to hear from Jean and Kathleen. Can you tell us a little bit more about your companies and share a little bit more about yourselves as founders and CEOs? Start with Jean.
Okay, hello everyone. Thank you so much. My name is Jean Brownhill. I am the founder and CEO of Sweeten. We are a construction labor marketplace focused in the US residential market. And our goal is to really use the most cutting edge technology to eliminate the inefficiencies in the construction process. So if you think about it, in the United States, it's a $1.3 trillion market, and they estimate that almost $580 billion of productivity loss happens every year. There is so much inefficiency in the construction process, especially on the labor side. So I'll just give you a very small example. So we work with licensed general contractors here in the US, and our general contractors, they estimate that they are spending at least $200,000 a year of unpaid work trying to win new work. So our goal is to dramatically reduce the amount of time that they are spending trying to win new work. What does that mean? That means that we actually have a system that we actually match renovation projects that homeowners have with vetted general contractors in our network, but we do it in a way where we use a pre-screen algorithm to make sure that those projects are real. We then use a time-based opt-in matching process to allow for our general contractors and our homeowners to opt in to get our general contractors to a meaningful introduction in as short amount of time as possible. In fact, we can do it 5 times faster than they can do it off platform. So that's just one example of how we're using technology to really, like I said, eliminate all of the inefficiencies in the construction process. And the company is called Sweeten for Home Sweet Home, making the world a better home.
Good fit.
Yeah, my name is Kathleen Egan. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Ecomedes. It said like Archimedes, the mathematician. And we're helping to bring leverage to the building construction market. We reduce the cost and impact for buildings. What we're trying to work on is aligning the demand with the supply. And the folks on the demand side, the buyers of construction products, have a lot of changes going on. They still use very manual systems, email attachments, PDFs, stuff like that to do their process. And now they have additional pressure coming from things like sustainability, wellness, net zero, waste, water, you name it. So their jobs are getting more complex and hard, but they don't really have tools. We're aligning this demand with the supply side, who are the manufacturers like Saint-Gobain, who are making increasingly more sustainable products to meet this demand, but there's more data to manage and it's more complex. So we have a free version of our product at products.ecomedes.com, and you could check out how sustainable products are. We're focused on the non-residential market, so it's more for commercial buildings. And then we host sites like that for our customers, both on the buyer side, like the US federal government, and on the manufacturer side, folks like CertainTeed, who's one of the Saint-Gobain brands. We're really trying to show that sustainable buildings are an important part of our future, and that the conventional wisdom that you had to pick between profit and people and planet is no longer the case, that we can really optimize for all three at the same time.
Thank you. So let's jump into our questions. So first, I'd like to talk about the success factors for building successful partnerships. So I'd like to start with from the startup perspective. So Jean or Kathleen, what are the critical success factors from your perspective for partnerships?
Can we jump in? All right.
Yeah, go ahead. We'll also.
So, I think number one, the very most important thing, and you've heard a little bit about it already, is just you have to have an aligned vision. Without that, it is just impossible, basically, to move forward. So an aligned vision is definitely number one, and then shared goals around that vision. Do you have a similar idea of how you're going to actually address that vision? I think that the other things that having done lots of partnerships, and it sounds like Kathleen, you've done lots and lots of partnerships, one of the things that I've really realized is that in addition to that shared vision and the mission as far as the goal setting, you also need to have a really clear sense of the dedicated resources from both sides, especially when the companies are so, they're such different sizes. I'm not saying that we don't do $42 billion of revenue at Sweeten, but let's just say that Saint-Gobain is a magnitude bigger than us. And so it's very important that we aligned on, what resources would be dedicated to this. And then lastly, I really think that you need to just have balanced the efforts and the rewards. Make sure that you really understand, like Minas just mentioned, their goal is to make sure that there's like broad learning through the organization. Like, are they achieving that? Are they understanding that? What is our goal? Our goal is obviously to continue to drive and grow our business. How are we achieving that? And so, yeah, that is the kind of checklist that I go through as we, continue to talk with partners like Saint-Gobain and others.
Yeah, I would agree with all that. And I would stress the goals. It's very important to be, constantly checking in on those goals because things change. And sometimes it might feel like, okay, here's the goals. We're all on board, just like we were last week or last month. But I feel like over communicating and sharing, being really transparent if there are changes or shifts in priority, and developing a partnership where you can be transparent. If something's looking off track or off schedule, the sooner you share it with your partner, the better. And I would add to the mission, the goals, like the next step down that I think is important to align on is the governance. And that includes what is the cadence of meetings. It includes the resources, like was just covered, but it also includes, here's the documents that we're going to use to manage our relationship. Here's the frequency. You probably have a project team. I like to also have an executive sponsor with a regular touch base. So a little bit of effort up front on that can make things run really, really smooth. And if you don't put that effort in, you're sort of having to do it on the fly. And I think that hurts the partnership.
Great. And so Maud, Minas, from a corporate perspective, what are the critical success factors for a successful partnership?
Maybe I'll jump in, Maud, and start. I think that we're navigating in our venture group kind of the interface between Jean and her team and Kathleen and their team, and then the businesses across Saint-Gobain. And it's not an easy interface to manage. I mean, there's very different worlds. I mean, scale is one difference, but how quickly decisions get made, the complexity of our organization in Saint-Gobain, and how we can help to simplify that so that the things that our startup partners need can be connected easily. I think we try to make Saint-Gobain easy to work with. So having the clarity to be able to make the connections and transparency, I think it's really a lot about communication. Really frequent, open communication so that everybody kind of knows what's going on. I think it's so important because it's a very complicated set of things that we're trying to do from a distance oftentimes. And I think at the end, if you're able to do it well, what you can begin to build is trust over time. And I think that trust really is sort of a foundation to being able to manage through all the ups and downs that the startups are going through, and that the changes in business environment that we're going through, so that we can manage the relationship over time in a way that preserves kind of the spirit that it's a mutually beneficial engagement for both parties.
Everybody should be also very pragmatic. We come with an idea of what you want to achieve in the partnership. They very clear on the objective and where you want to go. I think this would be quite critical aspect of partnership.
It's a bit hard for us to hear you. Can you try to repeat what you just said again?
Okay, the connection was bad. Okay. Well, I'll come back when the connection is better than
Okay. Okay, great. And so, as you know, working with a large corporate can have a lot of advantages. It can also have challenges. I'd like to hear a bit about what the greatest advantage could be and what the greatest challenges in an effort to help our audience and founders in the audience navigate the complexity of that. So open up the floor to whoever wants to address that first.
I'll jump in first. I think the value depends a little bit on what kind of company you're at. And for us, we're sort of a new market. There's not a big established group of companies doing what we're doing. So you're either in a new market or a more mature competitive market. And if you're like us in a new market, the value that's so big is credibility. And also, not everybody has a baked-in budget and a baked-in process to use our solution, because it didn't really exist before, right? We're sort of like the car, and people are, saying, I want a faster horse. So they haven't planned for what Ecomedes does and how we engage. So having, a large, respectable organization like Saint-Gobain helping us figure that out and show other companies the way is immensely valuable. On the challenge side, I think it goes back to the resources, and we, there's a balance. And we're new with Saint-Gobain. We haven't had this challenge with them, but with other large partners or customers, they want a lot. And there's a lot of opportunity when you look at the digitization of all these processes and the sustainability of buildings. There's a lot of opportunity. We're 7 people, so being really strategic and intentional about what we're going to prioritize and how we're going to prioritize it, and make sure it's the most important things to the partner, because there's a long tail of stuff that most big partners would like, but is it the most important thing? So trying to find that balance.
Yeah, I'll agree we'll probably agree with a lot that each other say, Kathleen. I think working with a big company, especially Saint-Gobain, they bring a global perspective, right? That has been incredibly educational and informative to me personally, especially if you think about recently as we're navigating COVID, conversations that I've had with Ecomedes and about the challenges that they're having with their supply chain. And ultimately, obviously, they weren't challenges, just COVID challenges. It really lifts you not just to 30,000 feet, but to 100,000 feet to really look at the globe and think in a global way. So that has been incredibly, incredibly helpful to us, in addition to obviously meaningful advice and resources and all of the incredible resources that a large company can have. On the challenges side, and I will actually use a different example, Kathleen, you reminded me, we also have a partnership with Walmart as an example. And, and this is a very tactical example that will hopefully illustrate for you all what can happen. So fantastic. There is an incredible opportunity for us to work with Walmart. We're really excited. And they handed us what was like a 150-page legal document. Now, I don't have a general counsel. I have lawyers that I pay, but they had a legal team in which they could, go back and forth indefinitely. And all of that was costing me really precious resources. Now, ultimately, they were able to understand that I did not have an internal legal team that was able to review these documents and to go back and forth in the way that they were proposing to do. We were able to work it out, but that, and I'm happy to say that we have a great partnership with them and we've been successful in that partnership. But that's an example, it's a tactical example of when we talk about like resource misalignment and how, if I would have not spoken up in that moment, I could have spent way more money than would have been reasonable for a smaller company to afford on that partnership. So luckily, just like Saint-Gobain, they understand that we're a small company and are willing to make, accommodations to be able to work with us. And certainly, Ecomedes, you all have been exemplary in that case, really understanding that when you talk to me, yes, we have a full team, but I'm probably the one that's going to have to go do the thing that we're talking about.
And honestly, Jean, I totally get it. You know, it's something where, and it's funny you say it, because it's a little bit like, you know, seeing the duck on the pond. I mean, it looks placid, but the feet are moving underneath, because the rest of the Saint-Gobain organization is probably characteristic of any large company. Most of the business people don't really know how to work with a startup. I mean, they would make all of the requests of a startup that they might make of any other business partner. And you know, and I think that's part of the challenge, you know, for kind of our collective, you know, activity is, you know, how can we, you know, make that, you know, kind of simplify to the point where it really gets down to the value added stuff and not the, you know, the other 148 pages of legalese that, you know, just doesn't make sense in the situation. But it's not easy to do. I mean, we face it all the time. So.
And add to that, Minas, I don't know if you hear me. Oh, no? Can you hear me?
Yeah, the audio is a bit difficult, Maud. I don't know if there's some background noise or what it is.
No. Okay. Well, I'm just concurring what you just said, saying that we need to be pragmatic, and it's not just also learning, teaching us how to be pragmatic in our big organizations, to focus on the essential. And that's also one of the big benefits from the relationship we have with the startups. Back to basics and back to essential. I stop there because I think you are hearing.
Yeah, so I think we heard you say that it's very important to be pragmatic and focus on the essential success factors for the startup so they can stay focused. Yeah, okay. Yeah, it's still a bit hard to hear you.
And, you know, on the advantages side, you know, one thing that we recognize is that, you know, we have so many capabilities that, you know, a team of 9 people or a small team, you know, it would be very expensive for you to have. So I think, you know, to the extent we know what those needs are that you may have, or we can kind of bring a capability forward, that's the type of thing that we would very much appreciate to do. So I think it gets back to the communication is, you know, the better we can understand what those things are, you know, whether it's access to an API that someone in a different part of the world may be developing that I think, Jean, you were looking for. I mean, we can make those connections, then those are the things where I think you know, we can, you know, take advantage of the leverage and the scale that we have to the benefit of the smaller companies.
Jean touched on one example with Walmart. Would anyone else like to share a specific example of a partnership that was either successful or unsuccessful, and why?
I could share one. Yeah, we have a lot of partners on the certification side. So these are government agencies, nonprofits, trade orgs, for-profit groups that are you know, certifying and testing materials, and we aggregate their data. So we have a lot of partnerships. Some of them are customer partners, some of them are data partners. The US government is one. That's an interesting one to manage. But the one I was going to talk about was BIFMA. They are an agency that manages furnishing certifications and how sustainable a piece of furniture is. And so they serve a lot of the same customers as us because those are their members, and that makes us very aligned. So, you know, I think that is a big part of the success is we're both trying to help the manufacturers of furnishing bring their products to market, bring the data that the buyers need, and advance the sustainability of furniture in general. And sometimes, you know, alignment gets off. They have different ways they want to do it than us. We leverage technology. You know, their goal is to bring value in other ways. So then we just have to kind of get back on track of, okay, we're trying to help these manufacturers, and the same will be true in, you know, drywall, insulation, all the categories. There are these groups out there that are looking after those products and certifying them. So I think it goes back to like getting the alignment, and then when, you know, they're sometimes nonprofits, so they're very different in terms of their goals as an org than us. And so coming back to, okay, here's how we're different, but here's how we're the same. So let's align on the part where we're the same.
Yeah, we have a partnership. We haven't announced it yet, but similarly, we will be working with a large financial institution that is also in real estate development. And within their real estate development arm, they have a goal, a diversity goal set by the federal government. They internally want to be able to achieve that goal, and certainly externally need to achieve that goal. And we realized that through partnership, we would be able to help them to do that much more quickly. So in the next 3 years, we're going to be onboarding 100,000 new general contractors to our platform as part of this partnership to support them in their goal. Now, this is one where, it might not have been necessarily clear from the outset how Sweeten could help them, but once we explained to them the machine that we had built, the way in which we can not only certify, onboard, but also upskill general contractors, specifically small to medium-sized general contractors, it became very clear to them how we would be an asset to them as they try to reach their goal. So, we're super excited about that. And that's one that, in some ways, and I would encourage everyone out there to think about, once you get industry alignment and goal and vision alignment, then really understand what their goals are, right? What are their goals, either like in partnerships in general or working with startups, or maybe external business goals that you can help them with? Because, at the end of the day, the resources and the scale and the trust that Kathleen talked about that these large companies have, those are incredible resources to be able to add value to. If you can add value to one of those companies, you should be absolutely looking and figuring out ways in which you can do that. And so this was an example of, we learned their specific business goal and then showed them exactly how our platform would be able to help them.
Minas or Maud, can either of you share an example where the global scope of Saint-Gobain was able to help a startup grow or expand beyond a particular geography?
Yeah, so I'm trying to think of a good example of that, because we've been doing a lot of work with startups in different regions, and we've been working very actively with startups for over 10 years, and there's been a couple of examples where we've been able to help a startup bring their offer to a different geography. Frankly, that particular example came via an acquisition. So we actually wound up acquiring that startup. It was a company making a product that was an acoustical damping material used in construction. So we were able to kind of take that from a local offering into a global product line. But it's really very, I don't really have a great example, to be honest. And it's not because we haven't wanted to do that. It's because we've been trying to work with each company in a way that fits within the scope of what they want to do. There's a couple of examples within Europe where there's a robotics startup based in the UK that we now have a number of projects going on with them in other European countries. But and we've actually introduced them to some of our businesses in North America. But for the startup to be able to manage a relationship in North America is just too much to ask of them right now. So actually we're trying to, dampen a little bit of that because of, just the practicality of them being able to take on the complexity of that thing. So I think it's something that we can help with at the right stage, but we need to adapt to the situation with the partner on when that right stage may occur.
Well, in Minas, hopefully we can come back in a couple of months and have a success story.
I hope so. Yeah, I didn't want to signal on that too early, Jean, but yeah, I certainly hope so. I certainly hope so.
Yes, Minas, I asked the question because if there are startups in the audience listening and they're thinking, oh, should I choose a corporate that only has a footprint, say, in the United States, or should I choose a corporate that has a global footprint or also a footprint in Europe, how they could leverage that to their benefit was the reason why I was asking that question.
Yeah, and I think that, I think it's a very situational choice. I think certainly as a multinational company, we provide the ability to be able to, connect, a startup with our businesses around the world, and we can do that. But it just, I think to the point Kathleen was making earlier, that comes with the commitment of resources and time and bandwidth that, that may not be so easy to deal with. So it's really about finding the right way to do that makes sense for the startup and probably more for the startup than for us. If it's something interesting, our businesses tend to pull pretty hard on it. And that therein lies the issue, is that, you get someone excited about something in Vietnam and they really want to implement it, and they're going to now all of a sudden be asking a lot of a small team to be able to help them, and then how can we manage those expectations in that situation? So that's kind of the practicality of that, but certainly it's something that we actively try to do.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Great. I've been watching the chat and I've seen a number of questions come in, and I want to be mindful of the time. We have just over 15 minutes left. So I'd like to ask one final question before we go to the Q&A. And so if I could hear from each of you, what advice would you give to new startup founders who are learning to navigate the complexity of working with corporates? You in some of your answers already, you probably touched on things. You might just repeat parts of your answer, but key takeaways for them.
Yeah, I can get the ball rolling on this one. I think you have to be selective. You only are going to have so much bandwidth for strategic partners. And you have to be very careful about who it is. There's a lot of corporate venture groups that are looking to put money into startups. You're a scarce commodity, and that they're going to define you, right? Our company will be somewhat defined by this relationship with Saint-Gobain, and their vision to make the world a better home is critical, right? It would make sense for us to partner with a big company that had a lot of venture money that didn't have a vision of the world being a better place. So you got to be very selective. I think you need to, the balance is the most important thing to manage. What, you can provide, but at the way that it's, profitable and economical for your company. And then finally, something one of our investors always tells us about any partnership, and I think it really applies to looking at, a corporate VC is, do you care about each other? Do you trust each other? And do you have a shared vision of excellence? And if you could say yes to those three things, then you're going in the right direction. I always think about it like a sine wave, like there's ups and downs to every relationship. But if you can look at each other and confirm those three, I think you'll be very successful with the right partner.
Yeah, I love that. Care for each other, trust, and shared vision of excellence. I'm going to use that. That is a fantastic framework.
Available.
I would probably only add to, once you do choose a strategic partner, I would be very bold in what you ask for once you have alignment around your goals and the basics of the partnership. Big companies have so many resources at their disposal, and you would be really surprised at what you can ask for. And sometimes, Mina's talked about, I've asked Saint-Gobain for research or, different information that they might be able to share with me to help me to understand market conditions, and this is research that, I just frankly wouldn't have the ability to access. You can ask, that's just like one tactical example. Really be very bold in your asks, and that probably can come mostly because you have a trusting and open communication. Once you have that, be super bold in what you ask for.
And I'll build on that. It's really, our team exists to facilitate the relationship and the engagement. So help us to help you. Don't ask us for, we may not be able to help, but don't be afraid to ask, because really our intent is to be able to do everything that we can to make available to you the things that are going to help you to be successful. And I would add, we meet a lot of startups, a lot of great companies. We don't, choose to try to invest in or work with all of them. One of the filters that we have is we ask ourselves, how do we bring value to this company? Like, why are we a good partner? Why are we a good investor? And there are times where, we may say, sorry, we're not the right partner for you, but it's not because we're not impressed with the company. It's just that we don't think we're the best, one, to be able to bring value to that relationship. So, we try to use that as part of our gating as well, because we fundamentally believe as a core value that any relationship we have a startup, if it's going to be successful, it has to be win-win in nature. We have to bring something to the table.
I'll try to add something. Hopefully you can hear me. I'd say, okay, great. I'd say just the startup is here also to inspire us and to open us to new perspectives, and we are here to support and to help it grow. So it's really about open communication and sharing the issues, sharing the challenges, and solve them together.
All great insights. Thank you. So let's look at the chat. So it looks like we have questions in both the chat feature and the Q&A. So I will start with the Q&A first. So the question is, do you have any examples you have worked on in making buildings or construction sites healthier and safer? For example, monitoring air pollution and infection risk factors. Venus, would you like to start with that?
Sure. I mean, it's an area that we put a tremendous amount of focus in. I mean, we think, certainly COVID has brought greater awareness to that issue of just healthy buildings and managing health in buildings. But both with our internal R&D developments as well as with our engagement with startups, we're looking at all kinds of different technologies to improve the overall environment and comfort in spaces. And it gets into the quality of the air, it gets into the quality of the lighting, it gets into the quality of the sound, and it gets into having a comfortable thermal environment. So, and if you imagine a company with a purpose like making the world a better home, certainly the physical environment that is the embodiment of home is something that we focus on very much. And we're excited about many of the developments that are emerging in the monitoring of the quality of spaces and the ability to fundamentally improve the quality of spaces through unique materials and unique technologies. So there's a lot of exciting things out there.
And Kathleen, do any of the products that Ecomedes is working on look at the health of the occupants, for example?
Yeah, our role in the market is really to look at scale as decisions are being made on what's going into a building, and from the spec, all the way through to the sub actually buying the thing and putting it in the building, is to inform that entire ecosystem about the performance attributes and the sustainability attributes. So something like Green Guard is a certification that many Saint-Gobain products have. And in the portal where we host their products, it makes it really easy for anybody, whether you're on a phone or a tablet or a computer, to find that information. Otherwise, it's a little bit hard to get. And so if they want to compare, information from one product to another, or to dive deeper into something called the EPD, which is an environmental product declaration that some products have. So bringing that together in a way that the buyers can access it really easily. And the sales team from Saint-Gobain or CertainTeed can give it to the buyer in a really easy, digestible way. So it's less about one product. When we think about it, like we could pull up a product and look at all the different environmental and sustainability and wellness aspects to it. But what we're really trying to do is make that available at large throughout the course of the construction, across all the categories, and then across all the buildings. And even once the buildings are finished, the remodel or even the maintenance of the building. So we are trying to make every single decision made about a product in a building take into account what is the sustainability level and transparency. So some companies don't even have transparency around what is in their products, right? And our view is that the leaders are the leaders of tomorrow are investing in that now and have that transparency, and the buyers will become more and more used to having it. So we sort of are going to take market share from all the manufacturers who don't have transparent, sustainable products and give it to customers like Saint-Gobain who are leading that charge.
I just love what you're doing. It's so inspiring. I'm so happy that you founded your company.
Thank you. Well, I'm so happy that you guys are helping us.
All right, so next question from Stephanie. How important or how difficult is it to identify the person inside your corporate partner who can say yes?
I would say it's varying degrees. Sometimes it's hard, and there's like a big secret of how to find out that works about 80% of the time is ask them. It doesn't work 100% of the time because some people will say they're the guy or the gal when they're not, but that's rare. And I hear a lot of times people are wondering, is this the right person? You really just directly ask them. And it's not insulting. It's not, you know, it's the most efficient way to do it. And so it's hard to find them, but it shouldn't be that hard to know if this particular person is the right person or not, if you ask them.
You know, I would say too, be careful a little bit. I think there, you know, for example, with us, you know, probably, you know, I might be in a position to say no, right, for sure. But, you know, I'm not sure I would say yes by myself. You know, I think, you know, I think I want to make sure that when we connect with a startup, we have like a coalition that is committed to make that relationship work. And we have a kind of a senior advisory board that, you know, reviews every decision that we make around an investment. And so, you know, I think that, you know, I think that process is probably a bit different for every company. And I would, you know, I think it's okay to ask to understand that process so that you can help provide those that are representing you with the right, you know, the best support to be able to build that internal support for the partnership between the corporate and your business.
And I can also help to answer this. I would say that's my job to try to connect the startup to the right internal stakeholder. And, you know, you need a business sponsor, but you probably need someone at a peer-to-peer level, right? Engineer to engineer, talk to each other, try to understand, you know, what the goals are, what you're trying to achieve. So I agree with you, Minas, it's a coalition. And yeah, ask the right, it's also on the startup side to make sure you keep asking the corporate, are you the right person for me to talk to? Yeah. And if you don't think it's the right person, you should try to push them to get you to the right person.
Yeah. And I almost say, if there is a situation where the corporate has a single individual that is making that decision kind of solely, I would advise caution, because ultimately, if the relationship's based on one person, that can be a little bit, you know, tenuous at times.
Yes, I would definitely second that, Minas. I think that, you know, especially in large organizations, you can have reorgs and the teams can really change quite quickly. And so it's really important to have multiple touch points once you have a partnership with a large corporate, for sure.
Great. Let's go to the next question here. So how important, oh, okay, that's the same question here. Okay, some comments that talking about legal. Yes, legal is a big problem. So people agreed with you on that, Jean. Let's see, do we have any, Leela, perhaps you can check to see if you received any private messages that I maybe
No, we
missed.
have more questions though. And I think personally, I have my own question as well regarding what strategy in the end helped you to overcome the legal hurdles, Jean, that you've been talking about in the end. You said, hey, I went to Saint-Gobain and said, this is too much. So what was in the end, what helped you to actually overcome that and to change the process?
To clarify, it wasn't to Saint-Gobain, it was to Walmart, just to clarify.
Our lawyers would never provide you a 150-page contract. It could never happen.
Yeah, well, but no, you know, I think we keep saying the same things over and over again, which is you need to have a trusting relationship and open communication. And that is how, you know, a contract, if as anyone knows, a contract is only as good as the two people on either sides of the piece of paper. And so as long as you can have an open conversation and say, like, as I did, I went back to my corporate partner on the Walmart side and said, you know, this is just really, this is too much. This is too onerous for my team to take on. Not the team, but like my P&L basically to take on. And they ultimately understood. So communicate, and be, I think that we're saying the same things, be open, transparent, direct, and communicate frequently.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for clarifying. And we do have two other questions in the Q&A. One is from Natalia. What is your wish list for new solutions? I think that goes to Saint-Gobain. Is there anything you find missing in the market?
Wow. So I think that so our wish list is quite long. I think if I were to answer that now, it would take quite some time, but I would direct you to our website where we have a list of the different areas of focus of our target areas where you can identify those things that we're very interested in. But, you know, Jean commented earlier on the level of inefficiency within the construction market and the construction value chain. You know, when one looks globally at construction, you have a multi-trillion-dollar industry. McKinsey did a study, I think, that evaluated that industry over the last 30 or 40 years, and there's been essentially zero productivity. So I think that the nature of opportunities to be able to bring improved efficiency and drive productivity at every part of the value chain is really, really tremendous. So whether it's in improving the way buildings are constructed, or the way materials are assembled, or any aspect of the process of taking raw materials and turning them into a building, you know, we're looking at all different kinds of solutions, from robotics to supply chain innovation to digital platforms. So, you know, it's difficult to give you a very convergent answer, but I would say the opportunities are vast, and we're very open to looking at, you know, all kinds of ideas.
I would add to that, Minas, sustainability and performance. I think in those two areas, it is huge. I mean, the opportunities are just huge because construction is lagging behind on those two areas, and the challenges are huge. So if you have a great solution, you crack a case, then just go for it.
Yeah, and we evaluate thousands of startups a year, so don't be bashful. I mean, we're very happy to work with you.
Thank you so much. Actually, someone pointed out Saint-Gobain is a large company, so it might be a little tricky, like navigating on the website. Is there any chance that we can provide our attendees with a link to the page where they can find the solutions here?
Absolutely. So our Nova team has a dedicated site, and Robin, we absolutely can provide that.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And last question comes from Devan. Minas, to your last point, what are the parameters for your typical investment? Is it seed or the stage or the check size?
Yeah, so we typically invest at almost any stage, but we prefer to start early. So we will invest at the seed or even pre-seed. More typically, you know, Series A and even Series B. We have a couple of examples of later stage investments, but they're less frequent. And I would say the normal ticket for us is, you know, we'll invest as low as, because it's at the seed level, a couple $100,000 to, you know, the largest investments we've made in the millions, like, you know, 3 million-ish is probably roughly the largest investment that we might make.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Robin, is there anything else we are missing?
I want to be mindful of the time. Looks like we're at the 60-minute mark. So, you know, we mentioned, Leila, that we could provide my email, and any of the participants are welcome to email me directly if they'd like to learn more about Saint-Gobain or Nova. And I can also pass along any requests to Jean and Kathleen if needed.
Yes, absolutely. So I just posted your email in the chat, and feel free to reach out to Robin. I'm also going to put my email here in case you want to learn more about our upcoming FoundHer events. We have two upcoming, one in November, one more in November and one in December. So we will keep you updated. And thank you so much, Robin, again, for setting up this event. I think it's been super inspiring. Thank you to the whole panel. I think we learned a lot about what it takes to make a partnership successful, from setting mission and setting the goals to building the trust to really defining the commitment with the resources it takes. So really, thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. Thanks very much.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Thank you very, very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Have a wonderful day. Bye.
Bye.